You're listening to This Week in E-Commerce, the Ecom Nation podcast. Dive into the top online retail headlines with your hosts, Paul Waddy and Mal Chia. Let's load up the cart. This Week in E-Commerce, episode 25. I am Mal Chia, and with me is Paul Waddy. Paul, how are you?
Hey Mal, I'm good. Hey everybody, how you going, Mal? How was your week last week?
The week was good. It's very rare. We're recording on a Monday. We're actually recording on Super Bowl Monday, which I know not every Australian cares about. It's no AFL Grand Final, but it is still one of the biggest sporting events in the world, and one of the great marketing events of the world, with all the ads which crop up over this period, which I always love to watch and catch up on.
Hang on, isn't it right now?
It's happening right now. It's
literally
happening
I hope you're
right
watching
now.
it somewhere.
Well, yeah. Once after we finish recording, I'm gonna turn on the game.
Most importantly, is Taylor Swift there? Taylor
Swift, of course, is there. And matter of fact, I was in the I don't sports bet very often, but I am betting on the Super Bowl, mainly because I'm a 49ers fan. They're in the Super Bowl, although my son this morning said the Chiefs are going to win. So I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to take one each way. So just put a small bet on the Chiefs to win, and if they do, great, I come out with some money. If I don't, the 49ers have won. So either way, I'm ahead. But for some of their novelty bets, there were bets about Taylor Swift, and in particular, there were the odds of Taylor Swift being thanked. If one of the Kansas City Chiefs wins the MVP, Taylor Swift gets a mention in the MVP speech.
Do you remember a couple of years ago in the lower leagues of English football when there was a bet on whether the goalie would eat a pie during the game?
No, I don't remember that.
And he got wind of it. He ate the pie and lost his job. So he got subbed off and went and ate a pie. Yeah. On the bench.
Oh wow! Okay, did he did he bet though?
Well,
that's the big no-no.
Yeah.
Like,
well, that's the thing. Like whether he did or told people or clued in with friends, and basically there was a real bet on it. So yeah, he lost his job.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, there's been some really cool ads which I've seen. My Arnold Schwarzenegger, he's done a State Farm ad. He's been hyping it as his biggest movie ever. It's a 60-second action film. So I've seen the trailer of that.
Awesome.
It looks pretty cool. So there's a lot of good ads. I've heard that Wix, or it might be Squarespace, one of them have spent an inordinate amount of money on their ads. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they have. They've been advertising for a little while and really, promoting themselves as being like a really easy to use, flexible platform. Look, all power to them. Just wouldn't recommend you starting an e-commerce store on there.
No. Good platform I used to have my website on Wix. It was really good, but definitely not suitable for e-commerce, I don't think.
Yep, absolutely. And how's your weekend?
Good. Just lots of work this week, so not a super exciting weekend. Just lots and lots. I feel like I'm always playing catch up at the moment, but yeah, it was okay. Got a lot done, and a little bit of downtime, so not too bad.
Very good. And it would be remiss of me not to also say it's happy Lunar New Year for anyone who's celebrating that. So obviously all the celebrations going on kicked off on Friday. So we've got about 2 weeks of Lunar
Feels
New
like
Year
2
celebrations.
years to importers.
Yeah, that's right. I got a couple of Chinese factories and manufacturers in various lists, and I'm getting like all these bounce backs on them now. I'm like, we're away for the next.
They are
week,
not
week
working at this time.
Yeah, that's right.
Good
that's
on
right. All right, we're going to kick into our first big story of the week, which is a very good news story, which is LSKD have taken out the title of Business of the Year at the very prestigious Telstra Business Awards, where they beat out 22,000 other small and medium-sized businesses nationwide, which is a fantastic achievement, how far they've gone in a very short period of time. So Paul, like, what do you attribute like this growth to? I know we've talked about LSKD a lot, but how have they been able to just continue to grow and grow and grow? They're pegged at 80 million now, tipped to hit 100 million.
Yeah, good on them. And good to see an e-commerce business or omni-channel business, as they have stores, I believe, picking that pretty prestigious award up. Like, I think everybody knows that award. They seem to be just a staple, don't they, in ecom, and a lot of people talk about LSKD. They obviously have a very strong community, very strong brand. They a lot of people talk about them in November. They do some pretty terrific numbers, I believe, in November. Hard to know. I think Jason Daniel, founder, named after his childhood nickname of a loose kid. Well, he's done pretty well for a loose kid, getting to $80 million and looking to hit 100. That's an interesting. You and I have probably both been at businesses in that phase, like trying to get to 100. It's a slightly different note here is that you do see a lot of Aussie businesses kind of power to that 50, 60, 70, even 80 million, probably largely due to US growth as well. Like it's probably unusual to be doing those numbers just in Australia. But a lot of brands kind of just get stuck a bit on the 100, which is really interesting. And there'll be a very huge milestone for them now to hit that 100 million in revenue, which is absolutely huge. Good on them. That's no small feat. They've done really, really well.
It's like
to answer your question, I don't know what makes them so special. I've never bought their stuff. Have you? You're in this
I do. I was actually wearing some LSKD over the weekend. I'm often wearing LSKD every now and then. They're part of my active wear rotation.
Nice.
Look, I think you're right about that. Where there's different stages of a brand's growth. Like getting to that first million requires you to think and work a certain way. Getting from 1 to 5 to 10 million. 20, 50, 100, there's different milestones, but each one of those milestones requires you to really change your way of thinking, your way of operating. I've had some clients as well who are at about that 20, 25 million mark, and they know what they need to do to get to the 50 million mark, and they look at it and go like, you know what, that's not for us. We're just happy just stay here.
Yeah.
And look, good on them because they've recognized that. They've gone like, I don't want to play that game. I just want to focus on what we do really, really well. You don't look, when you're making $25 million a year USD, you're doing pretty well.
You're doing fine.
Like they've got fantastic net profit. Their net profit was like in like the mid-teens, mid to mid-teens. Sometimes it tipped on to 20. They were doing very fine.
It's a good life.
Doing very fine. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They felt no particular pressure to go even harder and take on that extra risk. And that's always something to look at. Like where are you going to be comfortable and where are you going to potentially be stretching yourself too far? And is that a point which you need to step out of? So obviously, they're aiming to continue to grow into like the 80 and 100, which is fantastic. But I think, they've played a very smart game as well, where they're very focused on the brand and culture, and the community which they build, and they're a very disciplined organization. And this is from me knowing the guys a little bit, but then also being able to observe from the outside as well. They are very disciplined. Like they don't stretch themselves too far. They kind of just do the same things but do it better each and every time. They're not trying to do something too outrageous in terms of like their products. They're just really good, solid staples with really clear branding. But that LSKD branding, you can see, from a mile away, and it's just a very simple brand to see and go like, oh yeah, I get why that is LSKD. But they don't really push too far outside of that. They're not trying to, to go hard into like, CrossFit or bodybuilding or things like that. They own like a very mainstream, niche. They're very much smack bang and owning that middle, with like a solid brand, solid products. They're not really aiming for Lululemon's customers. And kind of have a bit of something for everyone, I guess. They're just a very easily accessible brand.
Easily accessible. What's interesting as well is it looks like recently they've paired off into running, but they've separated it from their main profile to probably really just give that differentiation. And it says launching, last month, LSKD running, separate profile with a completely separate set of socials. So when they do sort of try and go into a niche, they keep it separate to not interfere with that accessible angle probably that you just spoke about.
And they're like, because of the price point, they've got a really great price point, and the quality is pretty good as well. They're also quite smart in the fact that they have patented some of their materials too, I believe. So they were one of the first in the game with using recycled polyester in their shorts and some leggings, and now that's quite a core part of their offering with a lot of recycled materials. So look, I think they've been doing a great job. Just kind of solidly just keep getting better. Like one of their mantras is 1% better every day. And it's something which they do very well. They're not trying to hit some gigantic home runs. They're just consistently, just being really consistent and good and consistent and doing everything really well over and over again, and just continue to do that 1% better every day. I think, that's obviously led them to this award.
Fantastic. Well done, Jason, and all the team at LSKD. Phenomenal.
Now, one of my favorite ones, Paul, you've got children, you've got 3, I have 2 young ones. We watch a lot of Bluey. And my house, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of Bluey at your house. The times I've been there, I've seen some Bluey on before.
A bit of Bluey, yep. Good show.
It's great.
Wholesome show.
Fantastic show. I love it because there's something for everyone, right? And that's like the hallmark of a good kids show. It's not just for the kids; it's also for the parents as well.
Let me quiz you, Mal. Recently, they counted down the top episode. What placed number 1?
Cricket.
You got it.
Cricket.
Good. You passed the test.
Yeah, great episode.
Great episode. Really nice.
Yeah, fantastic episode. Look, but the big news, though, from a retail standpoint, is that I think they have come up with one of the collabs of the year, if not arguably probably one of the best collabs ever. In that Bunnings have renamed 7 of their stores around Australia with a complete Bluey makeover. So they've renamed them as Hammer Barn, which it comes from, can't remember the name of the Bluey episode, but Bluey and his family go to the hardware store, which is named Hammer Barn. So Bunnings have now done a takeover, and they've completely made it over with like Bluey characters there. They've also had products from the show, from that episode, you can now purchase from the stores. What a great way to be able to extend that, that Bunnings don't need to do something like this, right? Like they're already the biggest hardware store in Australia by far. And no one even comes close. Even Masters. I remember I knew someone who was hired to be the Masters store manager, and then he got fired before they even opened. If you remember the whole Masters debacle where they were like, we're about to open. It's like, actually, let's not even bother. No, you're not. We're better off not opening. And I caught up with him afterwards, and he just said, like, we were like Bunnings, but like 10% worse than everything.
Yes. That's a value proposition.
Yeah, and it's just like they were just like, we were just like Bunnings, but just not as good.
That's a catchphrase.
Like, wow, okay, that's a great reason why. So Bunnings don't need to do this, but they can go and do this amazing partnership where they've collaborated with Bluey to bring that cultural relevance. Like kids really love going to Bunnings, and now imagine going there with your toddler demanding to go to Bunnings to see Bluey.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, isn't it? Like the toddlers will demand, and you will take them. I imagine this is probably going to, entice the mums into Bunnings as well to do those chores with the kids. It's great. Yeah, I think it's so clever. Do you remember? It reminds me of. Do you remember when AFL player Gary Hocking changed his name to Whiskers?
Like the cat food.
Yeah, so he legally changed his name to Whiskers for a couple of weeks. So he was Whiskers Hocking in one of the very early random partnerships, and it did the same thing. It just got everybody talking. And we kind of talked about this, or we do talk about it a lot. The 2024 kind of being a big year of partnerships, and even massive companies like Bunnings, who have got the market, probably, I don't know how much market share they would have. I dare say the vast majority, still going into weird and wonderful partnerships to, I guess try and create interest and somehow attract a new audience, being children and whoever takes the children. But further cements the needs for, in my mind, for us as retailers to do weird and wacky stuff and do partnerships, because partnerships are great and everyone wants to do them.
It's not just weird and wacky, it's very on brand as well. Like it aligns perfectly. Like considering that Hammer Barn was clearly a send-up of Bunnings. Even how it looks as the kids walking around with like eating their Hammer Barn sausages and things like that. Even like how when they were greeted, it's like, turn left down here. If you go to the Flamingos, you've gone too far. It's like, that's literally how they talk to you there. It just made such perfect sense. But, they didn't need to do it. And I think more brands, but it just makes them so much more culturally relevant. Yeah. And it's just thinking back to like, what is a brand? A brand is culture. Yeah. A brand is irrelevant if it doesn't actually speak to a culture. You can have like the best brand strategy in the world. You can have like the best style guides in the world. But ultimately, if it doesn't speak to someone, it hasn't really succeeded as a brand. And Bunnings are just like, this just kills it for me. Like, I love this. I think because there's going to be case studies about this, about how they didn't need to do it, but it was just such a perfect fit. So I think the opportunity, like you said, is to look within your own brand and look at, well, what makes sense for us? Who makes sense for us, or other brands which we could align to? You know, what other media properties out there which just make sense for us to partner with?
Yeah, I agree. I love this. It's one of my favorite things that I think we've spoken about, Mal, and I'm really looking forward to seeing. I know we've got some clients who are, Mason DeSabre have done things with Disney and Barney's and are still working on some big ones at the moment. I know who is Elijah is actively seeking them out, and with some huge brands. So I'm really excited. Challenge laid down. See what people can come up with in really cool partnerships this year. I'm looking forward to seeing what people do.
Absolutely. All right, now going on to our last story, which we're going to cover off this week, is that New Balance have launched a resale program called Reconsidered. So this is something which we're seeing gain a lot of momentum in the last couple of years, like particularly with like Lululemon offering their Like New. You can buy their Like New activewear, and they actually market it really well. They effectively say you're going to pay like 20-30% less, but it's been proven. This is activewear which has been proven to last and proven to work, and now you can get their stuff at a discount. And similar with Nudie as well. Nudie do the same thing. They resell secondhand jeans, which they repair and fix and reinforce and all those things, and they sell it at a significant discount. So more and more brands we're seeing enter into resale, and really tapping into that circular economy. So I guess, Paul, you've been in this game for a little while, as have I, and we're going to show our age with like sustainability. It's almost like, after people kind of like poo-pooing sustainability and green, it's sort of been there, but it's never been something which has been seen to be like a needle mover. With more and more brands like this jumping into this resale stage, is this the year where sustainable shopping and green finally cracks the mainstream?
Well, that was one of our predictions for this year, is that it'll actually start to make sense commercially, because I'm pretty sure up until now it's a nice to have, but really people are kind of just shopping where they want and how they traditionally have. And that's not to say that green brands, exclusively green brands, haven't made traction. We know that, brands like Flora and Fauna and so on got, worth plenty of money and are making really good revenue. But I do think there's an element that some of these people moved early and moved with difficulty in terms of revenue and profitability. And I do think that this year people will start voting a little more with their wallets, although cost is certainly going to just hamper that a little bit at the moment if you're asked to pay a little more. But to your point about Lululemon, it's a little bit cheaper, so that's kind of interesting. I think Nudie is a great example, because Nudie kind of have genuinely, Nudie Jeans has genuinely made this a pillar that they lean on, and that people, and it's super accessible to be able to drop into a Nudie store and, get your jeans fixed for life. Everybody knows about that. I think there's two ways I think about this. Like a huge commercial brand like New Balance doing this shows me that everyone's just thinking about it. So brands are really starting to take it seriously. Like I haven't seen specifically anyone really just come out and kill it because we did something sustainable. I think it's kind of like, we do a sustainable this and a sustainable that. So I do feel there's an element of keep up. We have to keep our place. We have to remain relevant. Gen Z and so on is coming through. They're a little bit more environmentally aware. So I do think there's just a place, there's a part of this which is just holding your ground and not necessarily kind of saying, this is going to generate X amount of incremental revenue. I don't think it will generate incremental revenue, really. I think it's about remaining relevant and aware and holding your place in the market. Because we've also seen in footwear, Allbirds and so on, like there's going to be, what's the other one? The vegan footwear,
I know the way you talk about it. I can't actually remember the name.
But so I'm
going to say something which I probably is going to sound totally inappropriate. I'm trying to pronounce it. Vegeta? No, that's
you're on the right track.
Okay.
Yes, there's a V in there. But they're reasonably everywhere. So I do think there's an element of like protecting your ground a little bit here, and I do genuinely believe that it will slowly become more mainstream and more commercial, and that you're probably going to get left behind at some point if you don't start to keep up.
But like you said, it's more of a in addition to, rather than the main game itself. I know that with some of those brands who have been focusing just on being purely vegan or sustainable, etc., a lot of them have really struggled to really get that market traction. So going back to Allbirds, we've talked before about how that their share price is like at roughly about 95% down from their IPO peak. So which is pretty significant. But then also in Australia as well, there's Etico, which won a number of awards at the Retail Sustainability Go last year, who do great products. They do fantastic products. But again, really, in the size of their business is a fraction of what's another footwear retailer, let's say like a Converse or something like that. So even though it's arguably a very, very substitutable product, which is just vegan, it's all sustainable, it's sustainably made, it's ethical, etc. And it's also cheaper than Converse, but yet people are still opting to go with Converse. So there's probably still something in that brand piece as well. And one we didn't talk about actually was Farfetch, which is the luxury marketplace, reselling marketplace. Almost went bankrupt last year as well, and they were one of the big darlings of this whole circular economy space, particularly with circular luxury. They were just unable to stand up on their own, so they ended up having to be sold off to Coupang, which is a South Korean e-commerce group there. But I guess my takeaway from that is that, luxury, it's not something which is it something which can stand alone? Like, it doesn't appear to be, to your point, that it is something which is better off just as being something which you add to say, hey, we are doing this, and it becomes part of your brand rather than being a standalone thing. Is that kind of what I'm hearing from you, Paul?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think it's like if you look at New Balance, right, it doesn't get much more commercial than New Balance, and they're not saying, hey, we're now an ethical brand, we're a green brand, this is us, only shop with us, because I think that niche is just like, that's a great way to cut 98% of your revenue. I think what it's about doing is just providing options for more people. And so in the same way that if I come to, I don't know, any store really, I probably don't like 80% of what's in there, but I just need a 20% for myself. So I think it's just, it's really just about being inclusive and providing people with an option. And I think that's really smart, because if I like New Balance, then I probably will try their sustainable one at a certain point. So it's like, I think it's just another collection. It's another occasion. It's just being inclusive to say, oh, guys, I've made a decision to wear, ethically sourced things, but I love New Balance, so I want to keep. Oh yeah, great. I'm sure they've done research to suggest that this matters. So I think it's high risk kind of to go all in on green stuff at the moment. That's and you made some good examples of. I forget who you just mentioned. Etico.
Let's go. Yep.
Well, Allbirds, it was an interesting one. Etico, like, that's for me is still super, super niche, but good on them. Like, it's nothing wrong with a niche, and if you nail it, they've probably determined that you can make a decent living. But the New Balance thing is just about like, hey guys, we've also got you covered. Like, there's an option for you. There's an option for everyone. It's no different to being like, hey, we now do kids' shoes. Hey, we now do environmentally conscious shoes. It's just category extension. Therefore, probably represents low risk. And I think it's smart. I think it's covering all bases.
All right, Paul, that's all we have time for this week. Anything to leave our listeners on?
No, I think we've had a request to look at the AusPost Ecom consumer report next week, Mal. So we might have a look into that and break that down. Some really interesting insights as always in that. But no, otherwise just back into another week of e-commerce.
All right, I'm going to go back and watch the game. Go the 49ers.
Good luck.
All right, see ya.
See ya.